If you spent any time online after Alton Towers opened its gates for 2026, you would think the park was finished. Trustpilot reviews called it a rip-off. Reddit threads declared terminal decline. Social media was flooded with footage of closed rides and empty queue lines, all converging on one damning verdict: Alton Towers is falling apart. But is the park genuinely broken, or are guests arriving with expectations it was never designed to meet? This is not a rant, and it is not a defence. The story starts with what actually happened on opening weekend and what families paid to be there. 5 headline attractions stood closed as guests poured through the gates for Alton Towers 2026 opening weekend. The Monorail, once the park's signature arrival, was silent. No power, no movement, just a line of empty carriages and a sign saying it would return later in the season. The Skyride, the aerial gondola that usually whisks families over the gardens and queues, was also out of action. Both closures had been flagged in advance, but seeing them shuttered in person still left a mark. Down in Katanga Canyon, the Runaway Mine Train and Congo River Rapids sat idle, their entrances chained off with signs saying closed for maintenance. Battle Galleons, the pirate-themed water ride, offered no official explanation, just a taped-off dock and the distant sound of disappointed children. To fill the gap left by the missing monorail and Skyride, the park rolled out a fleet of electric shuttle buses. About 10 of them, branded in bright colours, looped between the car parks and the heart of the park at roughly 10-minute intervals. They were accessible, with ramps for wheelchairs and pushchairs, and the drivers did their best to keep things cheerful. But the journey took longer than the old monorail, and the mid-morning rush saw queues snaking back through the car park. Guest feedback on the official app averaged 3.4 out of 5, with most complaints pointing to the extra wait and the loss of that classic Alton Towers arrival moment. The numbers tell their own story: 5 major rides unavailable out of a total of 58, cutting the active lineup by nearly 10%. For families who had mapped out their day around the rapids or the mine train, or who counted on the monorail to save tired legs, the absence was felt in every extra step and every longer queue. No amount of cheerful bus banter could disguise the fact that, on opening weekend, a chunk of the park was simply missing. The price of a day at Alton Towers has always stung a bit, but in 2026 it is a proper wallet thumper. A standard adult ticket hovers around £70, with a family of 5, 2 adults and 3 kids, facing a baseline outlay of £326 just to step through the turnstiles. That is before you have even parked the car, which tacks on another £15, or considered queue bypass options, where single ride fast track can reach £25 a pop. For a family hoping to dodge the worst of the lines, let us say 2 fast tracks each for the adults and 1 for each child, the tally jumps by another £110, and that is still a bare bones day, with no meals, no plush toys, no commemorative ride photo to prove you all survived the Smiler. Realistically, most families see their spend creep past £500 before they have even factored in lunch or a souvenir mug. At these prices, every closed ride and every minute lost in a shuttle queue lands with extra force. When you are paying premium rates, the expectation is for a premium experience, not a scavenger hunt for what is actually open. The price tag does not just buy access, it buys the right to expect the full Alton Towers. When that promise falls short, the disappointment is not just about a missed ride, it is about feeling shortchanged. And in 2026, with the cost of a single day out brushing up against a family's holiday budget, that sting is hard to ignore. Alton Towers sprawls across 910 acres of woodland and lakes, anchored by Gothic ruins and a ride network shaped as much by history as by thrill. The entire estate is a Grade 1 listed landscape, so every new ride, scaffold, or even a coat of paint faces heritage assessments and council approvals. Nothing can rise above 30 metres in the central grounds. That is why the coasters twist through trees and hug the hillside, preserving the skyline, but complicating every upgrade. Age is another silent adversary. Nemesis, the park's iconic inverted coaster, opened in 1994 and has seen 3 early season shutdowns in the past decade, including a 3-day closure in 2022 after a hydraulic pump failure. The Smiler, following its 2015 crash, now runs under a strict 4-stage release protocol, safe but unforgiving to even minor faults. Older rides like the Runaway Mine Train and Congo River Rapids rely on custom machined parts, with maintenance teams improvising solutions for hardware no longer in production. Technical reliability is always under strain, not from neglect, but from the challenge of keeping a Grade 1 listed park running on aging machinery. Smooth openings are never guaranteed. 12,300 mentions of hashtag Alton Towers flooded Twitter and TikTok within a week of opening. It was not all fury. Most posts were just photos of soggy chips or kids in ponchos, but the volume alone made it feel like the park was trending for all the wrong reasons. Sentiment trackers showed a sharp swing. The ratio of negative to positive posts moved from 0.45 before opening to 0.68 by Sunday night. Reddit r Alton Towers split almost down the middle, with just over half of comments venting about closures and the rest either nostalgic or quietly supportive. This is how it works now. One guest's bad day can ripple out in real time, multiplied by retweets and reaction videos. A broken monorail is not just a local hiccup, it is a meme by lunchtime. Instagram fills up with photos of empty Skyride stations, and suddenly the story is not that 53 rides are open, but that 5 are shut. Even the most diehard fans find themselves defending the park out of habit, then pausing mid-scroll to wonder if they are kidding themselves. The noise drowns out the nuance. For every family who still found magic in the mist, there are a dozen hot takes about feeling mugged at the gate. The gap between problem and perception widens with every hashtag, and the story takes on a life of its own, far bigger and far louder than the sum of its parts. Corporate decision-making has rarely felt as exposed as it does in 2026. The Skyride overhaul, once a banner project announced with fanfare in 2023, has now swallowed £35 million and still sits dormant, months past its promised debut. Each revised timeline, first summer 2025, then the third quarter of 2026, lands like a fresh apology, but the gondolas remain out of reach. Meanwhile, Project Horizon, the much trumpeted expansion set to bring a new dark ride and a vertical launch coaster, has slipped quietly from the 2025 calendar to 2027. The official line blames landscape studies and Skyride delays, but in practice it means another 2 years with nothing new to show for the price hikes. Cost-saving measures have crept in elsewhere too. Merlin trimmed operational staff by 5% across the resort, shifting more guest service to kiosks and thinning out the presence of helpful faces on busy days. The Runaway Mine Train's full refurbishment, originally slated for last year, has been pushed back yet again, leaving maintenance teams to patch up legacy hardware with little more than ingenuity and hope. The numbers reflect the strain. Alton Towers' Net Promoter Score, a corporate favourite for measuring guest loyalty, dropped from plus 22 to plus 15 in the last year. That's not a collapse, but it's a warning sign, especially when Thorpe Park and Chessington are holding steadier. For all the talk of world-class experiences, the effect of deferred projects and leaner staffing is felt in every longer queue, every out-of-order sign, and every review that quietly wonders if the old magic is fading. The frustration isn't just about nostalgia, it's about paying more and getting less, with the sense that management is banking on goodwill to carry the park through another season of broken promises. There's a particular kind of magic in the British theme park morning, one that persists even when the headlines are all about breakdowns and bus queues. Long before the gates swing open, clusters of regulars gather at the top of Tower Street, mugs of tea steaming in the mist, swapping stories about the first time they braved Nemesis, or queued for hours in the drizzle just to be on the first train. The rope drop ritual is part performance, part pilgrimage, a countdown echoing across the cobbles, a cheer as the chains are lifted, and a surge of families and diehards all racing for their favourite ride. It is a tradition that endures, rain or shine, whether the Skyride is gliding overhead or not. Even on a soggy March morning with half the park still waking up and the scent of damp earth mixing with roasted peanuts, there is a sense of belonging that cannot be shaken by a few closed rides. The loudest critics online are often the same people who know every shortcut through Gloomy Wood and can recite the Nemesis Lift Hill chant by heart. They grumble because they care, because Alton Towers is where childhood memories were made, friendships cemented, and annual rituals set in stone. For every complaint about price hikes or shuttle delays, there is a quiet pride in being part of this odd, enduring community, The disappointment stings precisely because the affection runs so deep. In the end, it is not indifference that fills the forums and vlogs with sharp words. It is loyalty, battered but unbroken, that keeps the conversation alive year after year. Alton Towers stands at a crossroads, caught between heritage, high expectations, and hard realities. In 2026, a family day out here still costs over £200, and with every ticket sold, the pressure to deliver grows. The park's future depends on whether that loyalty can outlast the noise. Share your take below.